Hi, everyone. I'm Steven Sigman.
And I'm Mike Massinio.
And this is the weekly movie throwdown, a discussion show where each week we dig into a film that fits our overall monthly theme. This month, we're talking about not so scary horror movies. And this week, we are talking about from 1978, Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which might be the closest thing to scary we talk about this month because it's tense, and the realism of it and the themes kind of make me feel a little frightened.
Yeah, although, I mean, not really straight horror, more of a thriller, but definitely unsettling.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about it because I haven't seen it in probably like 30 years and I forgot just how amazing it is. So we'll get into that in a minute. But before we do, we have some news to talk about.
Yeah, first, let's give you a brief callback news because we talked about Kevin Costner last week and you asked me what was going on with Horizon Part 2. And to answer your question, yes, there were supposed to be multiple more Horizons, like Part 3. Supposedly there was a possible Part 4. I don't even know. But as of now, Part 2 is in complete limbo with no release date, with no anticipated release date. It's just a finished movie with no distribution. And part of that is because the first part did so poorly that they initially wanted to shelve part 2 and let part 1 run a little bit like on streaming services and build up some word of mouth, which has not happened. So they don't really know what they're doing with it. And that also isn't helped by the fact that there's a sexual assault lawsuit from, like, I think it's a stunt woman going through right now, and they tried to get it thrown out. Like, Costner tried to get it thrown out of court, but it actually isn't thrown out of court. So it's going to proceed. So now you have that hanging over the project as well. So there's a very good chance we may never see Horizon Part 2, at least anytime soon.
Did he, I know for the first one, he like famously mortgaged a house or something and funded it himself. Did he fund the second one as well?
As far as I know, all of these are funded by him. Yeah, he's kind of put up the majority of the money for all of these. So, and that's why I think it's finished filming. I think he filmed them back to back to keep kind of keep the cost down to be able to film all at once. So, yeah.
You'd think he would find a way to distribute it himself if a studio is not going to bite on it.
It's certainly possible that may happen, but now that it's got this court battle hanging over it, I don't know what that's going to do. So, it's definitely just one of those in limbo movies that we really don't know what's going to happen with it. So, pretty crazy.
Look for Horizon Part 2 on YouTube on Kevin Costner's channel. Interesting.
Yeah. So other news, though, two other things. One, that I stumbled onto this story that said that Jim Carrey, who has only starred in like Sonic the Hedgehog movies for the past decade, I mean, since like 2016, he's only done those 3 Sonic movies because he said he was retiring. Supposedly he's talking about playing George Jetson in a live action Jetsons movie. Directed by Colin Trevorrow, of all people, strangely enough. That's the word right now, that's possibly coming through. And I have no idea what to think of that. I have no idea why Jim Carrey was circling it. I have no idea why Colin Trevorrow was making it. I have no idea why it's being greenlit. Like, I don't understand anything about what the Jetsons, a cartoon from 1962, was basically just the Flintstones in space, has to say about anything now, except that it's IP. Interestingly enough, the original Jetsons took place 100 years in the future. I don't know if you knew that. It was made in 62. It took place in 2062. So it was 100 years in the future. And we're already like 30 years away from like the supposed Jetsons future. Maybe we'll do this on a future pod, but I think if you think of all the projections of the future, we're like a hell of a lot closer to the Blade Runner or Terminator future than we are to the Jetsons future. That's for damn sure. But so again, I don't really know what the point of a Jetsons movie is in 2026 or 2027 that is being made. It just kind of baffles me, other than it's IP that they own and they can, do whatever they want with it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they it's something they haven't made yet. That's IP that they own.
Yeah. But piggybacking on that, because I don't understand what the point of the Jetsons is. No one knows anything because this weekend was a huge disaster at the box office. So I was reading something about how one battle after another is projected to lose like $100 million, even though it did decently at the box office, but the budget was so high. Smashing Machine had a pretty high budget. That's a huge flop. Roofman, which I told you I went to go see, that's not going to be as bad because the budget was really low, but it really didn't make any money. Kiss of the Spider Woman really didn't make any money his first week.
Didn't even make $1 million.
No, and even which is shocking to me because I really like Bill Condon and I was excited to see that movie. Tron is a failure. Well, in that list you have almost every genre you can think of. Really, other than a straight action movie. But I mean, you have a musical, you have an adult drama, you got a sci-fi movie, you got a prestige movie, and all of them are failures. I don't know what that says about anything. I don't know what that says about what people are going to see. I don't know what it says about what people are going to see. So screw it. Make the Jetsons. I mean, who knows? Who knows what anybody's going to go see? Why not? That's my conclusion. It's like, just go ahead. I don't know. I don't know what anybody wants to see anymore.
I think of those films you mentioned, well, One Battle After Another and The Smashing Machine are original stories, whereas everything else is a remake or IP. And yeah, that's actually very interesting because we clamor for, unique stories. And then when they come out, Smashing Machine was kind of thrown off its opening weekend by the Taylor Swift stuff.
I
But
guess so, but
still, it wasn't going to make a
it's
ton
not
of
like it's
money.
the same audience. So I don't know if that's true. And what you said, regarding the IP thing, it's like, well, Roofman, I mean, that's based on a true story. You got that
Right.
element to it. People didn't want to go see that. You got Kiss of the Spider Woman based on a known musical. People didn't want to see that. Sebastian Machine, also based on a real person that no one really knows, but who cares? And my son mentioned that to me, where he's like, I think that because people didn't know who that is, maybe they didn't go see it. And I said to him, that's irrelevant because we go see biographies of people we don't know all the time. I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't know who the person in The Blind Side was. We didn't know. I mean, did anybody know Vince Papale in Invincible before they saw Invincible? I didn't know who that guy was. I don't think that knowing the person ahead of time really matters that much. Did anybody know who Rudy Rudiger was until you saw Rudy? So I'm not really of the belief that if people don't know the person of the biography, they're not going to go see it. I don't really know why people didn't go see that movie.
Yeah, and you have Dwayne Johnson in it. I mean, I think they put their money into
Yeah.
the Dwayne Johnson machine, and
Yeah, and now you're building an Oscar campaign that he definitely wants around a movie
yeah.
that no one will have seen, which is going to be even more challenging and more lost money. But
Well,
by
that
all
could also
accounts,
mean a re-release for it, and it'll make a little bit more. But I think One Battle After Another has kind of a long tail to it. So once it gets onto streaming and in my case 4K, it's going to pick up a little momentum. At this point, seems to be a front runner for a lot of Oscars. So that'll definitely get another release, especially with the VistaVision gimmick. So I
yeah,
think
it's true.
that'll help.
But will that drive box office? Because I mean, I don't even know. The movies that have won the Oscars the past few years, I'm not sure if that's helped it make any money. So I'm baffled. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out.
It's a tough fall for films, and I think a few things are coming out that have a little bit of buzz to them, and we'll see if the box office picks up. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I guess
it's a
I'm in the
pretty good summer.
minority. Yeah, I'm in the minority because I mean I see a bunch of decent movies coming out in the fall. I mean, some have already come out. Like I was very excited to see Kiss of the Spider Woman. That's a movie I want to see. I went to go see Roofman. Like I said, there's a couple of other movies coming out. Obviously, Deliver Me from Nowhere is a movie I definitely want to go see. Yeah, there are things on the horizon that I'm definitely interested in seeing. So I'm not Horizon itself, but on the horizon that I'm interested in seeing.
Fun fact about Deliver Me from Nowhere. You read the Warren Zanes book, right? Does it start at the Rhino Club? That's what a friend told me, so the Rhino Club is right around the corner from my hotel right now. And the book opens with Springsteen playing at the Greensboro Coliseum, but he sits in with this band at the Rhino Club, like after his set or something. And it's just so cool that Warren Zanes, who wrote that book, lives in my town. So I've seen him around and like
Really?
discussing it. But the fact that the book opens or like somewhere toward the beginning, like right where I am right now, is really cool. And I didn't
Well,
know that.
right. The reason it opens that way is it opens with how he actually knows Springsteen because he was in a band, the Del Fuegos.
Yeah,
If I
yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah.
right, that's what I was reading. Like that's the connection.
Right.
They were the band that were playing there, and he kind of
That's right.
came in. They were playing a club, and he walked in and sat down with them. So
Yeah. It's like a 1 minute walk from my hotel, which is very
really,
cool. And I had no idea until my buddy told me. So it's like this history happening all around and pretty neat. I have one story this week, and it's actually quite sad for me and for a lot of people. But we lost the artist Drew Struzan this week, and he had been battling, I think, Alzheimer's for a little while. And just he died this week. You know his work. If you're listening to this podcast or if you've ever watched a movie, you know Drew Struzan's work. He's famous for working with George Lucas, Steven Spielberg. He's the poster artist who has just this like lush realism and this style that he created in the 70s that everybody tries to emulate now. I mean, if you look at all of the what they call floating head posters, where everybody's on it and kind of hovering above a little scene. Drew Struzan created that. And he just is such a singular artist that it's an incredible loss. There was a documentary about him, I think in 2013-ish, called Drew Struzan, the man behind the poster, which I highly, highly recommend because they talk to everybody because he's worked with everybody. He did the posters for Back to the Future, The Thing, Superman. Well, maybe not Superman. That might have been Bob Peak, but Star Wars, all of these things in the 70s and 80s and beyond that are iconic, like the way Saul Bass was in the 60s and 70s, Drew Struzan became in the 70s and 80s. And it's just a really big loss and many imitators, but nobody can touch the things that he's given to poster design and marketing in Hollywood. So rest in peace, Drew Struzan.
Hey, real quick before we get started on the thing, I just had to mention this because it's funny to me. And it's not related to movies, but it is related to someone that passed away. That Ace Frehley just passed away a couple days ago.
That's right.
Guitarist from Kiss, the original Spaceman. The thing that made me laugh is that Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, obviously the two main guys in Kiss, released a statement about him. And what they said, the quote was, he was an irreplaceable rock soldier. And I had to laugh at that because
they did replace him.
They replaced him twice.
Yeah.
They replaced him originally, and then they had the reunion tour, which I saw and loved, by the way, and they replaced him again. So I guess he is a replaceable rock soldier, not an irreplaceable rock soldier. But, maybe we're just splitting hairs, but I had to laugh at that.
I that ties to Hollywood because he was in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. So,
that's true.
He's on screen, so it's worth mentioning. Yeah. Yeah. Rest in peace, Ace Frehley.
Yeah.
That's I forgot about that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's the news. Let's move on to talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So I hadn't seen this in a long time. And when I first saw it, I don't think I recognized what a masterpiece it is. I am absolutely blown away by this film on every level. It is amazing. So I'm really glad that you brought it to the show.
Yeah, I part of me bringing this one up is I don't recall seeing this version. And that's part of why I wanted to see it too, because I am a huge fan of the original. I've always loved the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's one of the few movies I could watch when I was a kid because it wasn't that scary as I watched it. And it's just such a beautifully done, kind of compressed, small town, like noir horror thriller in a way. Like it's a very particular kind of movie, but it's horror mixed with very deep noir themes throughout
right.
it. And that's what made me love it. And I think what's really impressive about the remake is they expand upon it. They make it a more interesting movie in a lot of ways, but they keep a lot of the noir elements in this one from 1978 too, which makes it visually striking. It's a wonderful movie to look at, and it just fills you with dread. It's just very well done for a movie that's done in color. There's just so much darkness in this movie.
Yeah,
it's very impressively done.
It absolutely is, right from the very beginning. I mean, it's beautifully crafted, like the special effects at the very beginning, and then you see the tendrils kind of come out over the plants that they land on. So impressive for the 70s.
Even more impressive, the fact that all of that was done practically. Like those are all practical in-camera effects. No CGI, nothing. They did a lot of that stuff in reverse, where they would do it and then they would reverse the camera so it looks like things are growing.
Right.
But just old simple camera tricks. I think they did the pod thing with like this foam that they purchased that cost them like $15
Yeah.
and they use it. I mean, it really is in every way impressive. I mean, a low budget movie that they squeezed every penny out of and got some really cool shots. It looks much more expensive than it was.
So basically, the simple story is that it's a San Francisco health inspector, which I kind of love that job because how many health inspectors are the protagonists? Uh, he discovers that human beings are being replaced by emotionless alien duplicates, which creates kind of a struggle for survival for him and humanity, I guess, in general. What I really find interesting is that I didn't watch the 56 version, but the themes of that are so universal, and it talks about culture on the whole, because those themes applied just as well to the 70s as they did in the 50s in the post-war era. It's pretty amazing, and I think that's why this is so successful and is remade all the time.
Yeah, like I said, you kind of every generation gets its own body snatchers, and what the one in the 50s. I mean, a lot of people have denied this to be the case, but Don Siegel, the director of the original, he did say that it's definitely a McCarthy. It's definitely a McCarthy era nod. For those who remember the Red Scare, and then the Senator McCarthy had those trials, and for looking for communists in America. So there are some people that see it as a communist allegory, being taken over by the faceless communists. But then the flip side to that was the idea of McCarthy kind of taking out anyone that stepped out of line. So depending on where you stood on the political spectrum, you would see either way. Uh, so that was very much that just hangs over the one from 56, where the one in the 70s, yeah, it's you interpret it through the era that it's done. And this one is done through a period of time in the 70s where you're getting a disillusionment with government and all of the leaders, so to speak. There were issues with coming out of the counterculture 60s. You're getting into a more conformist 70s. And obviously that really comes to fruition in the 80s of just this kind of conforming to a regular way of being, where the 60s felt like something really different, that people were changing culture in a way, especially in San Francisco, which is why this taking place in San Francisco is so interesting as well. You had that
Yeah.
whole hippie
Yeah,
culture. And
absolutely.
so this idea of these people conforming to the ways, the normal ways of living was an issue that was going on in San Francisco. So this has very much a nod to that, this idea of us just becoming like consumerist corporate machines in a way.
Yuppies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the opening of her boyfriend, Jeffrey, watching commercials on TV at the
Right.
beginning, and then after he becomes a pod person, he's still watching commercials on TV. That kind of idea, like those things are subtly within the movie. So it's speaking very much to that, this version.
Yeah, it really leans into like the post Watergate paranoia, and that's what the 56 version did with kind of like the atomic age and the paranoia around the McCarthyism, and I
Exactly.
just think that it's so fascinating how universal this is. You could clearly put it, make it today. They made a version in the 90s that, yeah, it's like every 20 years, this is the one thing you can keep remaking and it's just as solid.
Yeah. And
Because
the reason the 70s one I think stands out the most too is because you have that feeling of the one from 56. But what you also have, because it's made in the 70s, is it ties into all of those political thrillers of the 70s.
yeah,
And it very much has the feel of that as well. Like those paranoia, parallax view movies like that came out in the mid 70s period. It has that feeling as well. So it's just a nice combination of genres that work together in a way that wasn't necessarily sure they would, but they really do.
right. And yeah, I mean, I think what makes I haven't seen the 56 one, but a few clips I've seen of
Cannot
it,
believe you haven't seen the one 56. It's great.
I know I'm going to go back and watch it
Just
because
make
I'm
sure you
really
get the right
into
one
this.
though, because this is important to remember too about the original. So when the original was filmed, the studio had them change the beginning and the end, and they
Right.
changed the framing device, and they made it a voiceover thing where he's telling the story from the future, and we get
Right.
flashback. And then we kind of find out that the army is going to step in and possibly make things better, although we don't know for sure. But the original ending, if you can get it with just the original ending of them running through the streets, telling people that they're coming for you, that's
Yeah.
just a powerful ending. And that is the way you should see it. The way they kind of ruined it with that nice little beginning and ending framing, I think really hurts the movie. It's still great to watch, but you should just try to ignore that if you can.
And you see that same thing in this version with Kevin McCarthy, who was in the 56 version, basically saying the same thing.
I love that so much. The fact that they got Kevin McCarthy to come in and almost make it seem as if he's been running this whole time.
Yeah.
And now he's running into the frame of this movie. Like I love that so much. And he very much loved the original, Philip Kaufman, the director, and wanted that in this movie. And yeah, it's one of my favorite cameos of all time.
And then Don Siegel, the director of the original, is the cab driver in this one. So they really pay homage to that. And I love it. I think that's really great. We have to, Donald Sutherland, just right off the bat, is like, I love him so much. He's one of those guys who is like a character actor as a leading man. And I think just 1978 alone, points that out, because he's in this, he's in Animal House, a comedy, and then he's in The Great
Right.
Train Robbery, which is a Western. All of those in the same year. So
That's right.
that shows you just like how good he is. And it's amazing.
I had to say, like, I decided to have my hair be extra curly today in homage to Donald Sutherland's character in this movie. Supposedly, he had like little curlers in his hair to get that look.
Really?
Yeah, I was reading about that.
That's a choice.
So yeah, it's definitely a choice. I don't know whose choice it was. I don't think they told me how to do it. Yeah. So his hair looks very much like mine. I don't know if that's insult to him or a compliment to me. I'm not really sure what that is, but
Wow. Halloween's around the corner. Maybe you want to go as Matthew
if I can get the mustache, and yeah, I can definitely.
Yeah. All he needs a trench coat. There you go. Yeah, I like it a lot. We're jumping right into the cast, but they're so powerful in this that excuse me, you have to. And Brooke Adams, who is making her second appearance on our show,
she didn't make a ton of movies, but she's made a few very good ones.
She was in The Dead Zone, and we love Brooke Adams. She's fantastic in this. She has to stay awake. Like, that's her main job, which is staying awake, and falls asleep in a few places that are sort of strange. But, she's from Days of Heaven. That was a big one. Also in the same year, 1978. So just like another powerhouse actor who is in this. The cast is just insane. Jeff Goldblum, Leonard Nimoy, Veronica Cartwright.
Very early role for Jeff Goldblum. I think he was still doing mostly TV shows, small parts in TV shows at this point. So this is a pretty big movie for him. And Leonard Nimoy, I think Leonard Nimoy's in this movie because Philip Kaufman, I believe, had worked on the Star Trek TV show, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they had a connection. I can't imagine that's not how he didn't get Nimoy involved in this movie.
I read something that said Kaufman was working on a Star Trek film script in 1976, and it was very Spock-centric. And when the word kind of came around that Star Wars was coming out and there was no buzz about it, then Paramount dropped the Star Trek picture because they thought sci-fi wasn't in vogue and it wasn't going to do well. They'd make a Star Trek movie like 2 years later because of Star Wars.
That's there's one of the great miscalculations of all time.
Yeah, they could have been first to market instead of Star Wars, and then time would have been completely different. So it's very interesting. You mentioned the noir aspect of the original and of this, and a big part of that is Michael Chapman, the cinematographer, who is coming off of Taxi Driver to make this, which is quite amazing. He worked a lot with Scorsese, in fact, and he did Raging Bull, he did The Last Waltz, and he did things like The Lost Boys, which I kind of love. The visuals in this, like everything about it, is kind of a feast for the senses. From the visuals, the Dutch angles, there's such a noir look to it. Like you said, the darkness. I noted a few moments where Donald Sutherland was sitting at a desk and the scene was only lit by the lamp on the desk, and everything around it is so dark.
Those things absolutely stand out. And what's funny is it's some of the things like the Dutch angles, some original reviewers, including Roger Ebert, which I came across, like did not like this movie. And they cast those things as like trying too hard in a way, and it turns some people off. And it's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, it's a science fiction movie. It's supposed to be visually arresting. It should be interesting to look at. I'm not sure why that's problematic. I think that's why, 20 years down the road, it was reassessed as being a masterpiece. I mean, all of those things just keep you on the edge of your seat. The way that it's filmed, a lot of handheld work, a lot of moving camera, where you very much feel the paranoia because you're in the middle of it. The other choice that I love is that it fits in because he's a food inspector. He's inspecting that restaurant at the beginning, and
Yeah.
they break his window, which is supposedly
Right.
pretty common with food inspectors.
Yeah.
But those sequences of driving through the streets and seeing the city through that cracked window is just another layer that adds to this sense of kind of dread and uneasiness, which is
Yeah. Everything's
it's a very
fractured.
simple thing that is very effective visually.
Yeah. Yeah, they like life as we know it is fractured or it's off kilter with the Dutch angles and it's just so smart. And the sound design too is something that I found really interesting because it has a lot of that kind of realism sound of overlapping sort of Altman-esque of the 70s, but the way it's designed is that from the beginning you're hearing a lot of nature and as it goes on, the nature kind of makes way for like sirens and those foreboding trash trucks. And it's just really smart. And it plays such a big role that you're maybe not even thinking about, but it really sets the tone for the scene you're in and like builds on that paranoia.
I don't even know if it's something that you consciously recognize,
Yeah.
but but it's like subconsciously you get it, and
Right.
you're kind of tracking the lack of natural sound as it goes on, and then it just fills you with this dread because you kind of know it even if you don't know it. Yeah, I just think that all the choices like that are incredibly smart. The use of the garbage trucks.
Right.
They're kind of the motif of how they're disposing of the remains of the
Yeah.
people. But so you just get these sounds of garbage trucks in the background, and then that becomes just another sound layer that just adds to this dread that you feel.
Yeah. And on top of that is the score from Danny Zetlin, which is so wonderful and a little off kilter.
I meant to ask you this. Did this remind you of the score from Sorcerer, or is it just me?
Oh, the Tangerine Dream
I
stuff?
got like a Sorcerer vibe from it. And
I can
this is
see
only
that.
like a year out, isn't it, from
Yeah.
Sorcerer? So
2 years, yeah.
I don't know if it was influenced by it, but that kind of pulsing electronic kind of soundtrack that
Yeah.
playing in those moments, it felt very Sorcerer to me.
I can see that. I was thinking I could see a little bit of Johnny Greenwood, like, being influenced by it too. Um, Danny Zetlin, the composer, worked on this for 1 month, like 20-hour days every day. And it basically broke him. He would never go on to score a film again, despite being asked over and over again because of how powerful this is. But that experience just put him off of film scoring forever. Actually worked on Sesame Street, which is kind of crazy, but that's what he went back to after scoring this. So it's kind
I
of
can
wild.
understand that. I mean, after making a movie this dark, maybe Sesame Street's where you want to be.
Sesame Street might feel like the message of the pod people, like conform to a better life, and they're teaching everybody the same thing.
It's not
I don't
right.
know. But yeah, all of those things together just make this. My first note was that this is an absolute feast for the senses because on every sense, you're just getting so much information and it really just like makes the film. I can't imagine it if this team didn't work on it, like what it would look like. I don't think it would be half as compelling as it is. Reminded me a little bit of Nicholas Roeg's films too, where like he did Don't Look Now with Donald Sutherland in 72 or 73. And there's a lot of like cross-cutting and overlapping sound and things like that. So I think it is kind of its time in the 70s. But here it brings in that like 40s and 50s noir and just makes it such a standout visually.
Yeah, the use of shadow, not shadow, but people's shadows
Yeah.
in particular is really well done. Like people kind of moving into their shadows or having the hovering shadows in the background, like that chase scene through like I think it's the Embarcadero, where they're running through those tunnels almost, and you just see those giant shadows in the background.
Yeah.
Again, just really effective. You can just turn the sound off and watch that and be completely blown away by it.
I noted a shot where they're running under, I think it's under a bridge or a train or something, and it's backlit, and it's just the shadows of Matthew and Elizabeth. Kind of reminded me, actually, since we talked about it, the Lost Boys, where they're up on the hill. Like every vampire movie
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
has a shot where they're on a hill and backlit in silhouette. So, but yeah, that was actually very stunning, and so many shots like that, like too many to go through. But
Yeah, and again, worth mentioning that most of this stuff was done on location, in the streets as well. Uh, this wasn't done on a set, so again, even that using real locations and just kind of using what light you have and trying to create atmosphere while filming actually in San Francisco. I believe that Philip Kaufman lived in San Francisco, which is partially why he put it here. It, and also because having lived there, he had seen how the city was changing and kind of had that's where the vibe comes from. But so you have someone that really knows the city and used it. What do we always say? You put a filmmaker to make a movie in the place that they know, and you're gonna get
yeah.
an effective movie. And that's true. It's like this is a person that clearly knows these streets and knows these areas and uses them to his advantage.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell, and it's the perfect place in the late '70s because of the counterculture. I kept thinking about the phrase "flower power." It's
Right.
in the '60s and took on a totally different meaning in this film. But yeah, that stuff is just so rich. Like it's such a rich film in a lot of ways. And getting back to the themes, I think even those are so rich. Like there's just everything about it. I can't believe it's not like it hasn't been one of my top films for a while because it's just so good.
So here is where I interject with one thing. The original was a pretty short movie, hour and 20 minutes long. And if you'd taken out the stupid beginning and ending part, I mean, probably been an hour and 16 minutes. I think this movie is a little too long. I think that's what keeps it for me from like reaching like peak movie for me. I really feel like it's about 15 minutes too long. There's just a couple of scenes that drag, that give us stuff that we didn't need, or it reiterates things that we already knew. And I can understand why. I mean, everyone in this movie is kind of at the top of their game, and I think they just kind of loved what they were doing. And so I can understand from a filmmaker standpoint, why you'd want to keep it all in. But as a movie goer, I think the third act drags a little too much of him kind of dragging Brooke Adams' character around. We
Yeah.
could have shortened that. There's a few things like we could have tightened some things up. It felt a little longer than it needed to be. And that's my only real issue with this. If you cut 10 minutes, it probably would be a masterpiece.
I think that's a symptom of the '70s and that kind of realist filmmaking that happened where things just kind of sat and time passed and it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, in the context of today, maybe cut some time out of it.
I mean, nowadays they'd add another 10 minutes. I mean, that's movies are even longer now than they used to be. But yeah, I felt that. Like I felt it drag a little bit for me. And I would have liked them to tighten up again. Because again, I think there was so much about it that's good that I think that if a little bit better editing in this movie would have just been, yeah. Because the thing that makes the original work too is the pacing is lightning fast. I mean, the whole thing takes place almost like in one day. It's just moving. And I guess when you watch them together, you sense the drag of this one a little bit more.
Right. I can see some of the scenes, like even the book launch dragged a little bit,
Right.
as interesting as it was. Is that a comic book shop, by the way? I couldn't tell where they
I
were, but it
couldn't tell
seemed like it.
either. But again, part of that, his wife is in that scene, and so I could see him wanting to leave that scene in as well. The person
Yeah.
arguing with Jeff Goldblum's character is his wife, so he's
Right.
not going to cut that scene out. So again, I get all the choices. I understand why you did it. I'm just not sure as a moviegoer if we needed all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that scene alone could have had 2 or 3 minutes cut out of it, and it would have been okay. Although that did have an amazing thing with the funhouse mirror, which visually was another
Yeah, he talks about.
incredible moment.
Yeah, I saw him talking about like the use of mirrors that they used in this movie.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not just another smart choice.
What I think is interesting is the relationship between Matthew and Elizabeth, because I wrote down a note that said at the beginning that they seemed like partners on a CSI show where they were like kind of just walking through the office talking and sort of platonic. But as it goes on, you can tell that he has feelings for her. And like I guess this is kind of a thing in the '70s too, where she was worried about her relationship and with Jeffrey, the dentist, and couldn't really leave it. I mean, the span of the film is not like so long that she would leave her husband or anything, but it seems like she was sort of disillusioned with him anyway. And they do a great job of contrasting him when he's like the horn dog watching basketball or whatever to when he's just like a pod person. But it seemed a little problematic. And the relationship between Matthew and Elizabeth, which is interesting in that it kind of I think when they kiss, it sort of represents like a liberation for her, and that's kind of like what the whole movie is like liberation from an oppressor in a way.
Right, because part of the idea of the pods is that you would lose the ability to love or hate. Like you just lose all of that.
Yeah,
So it is a rebellion in that respect. But what
what
you
a
just
weird
said though
concept.
about Jeffrey reminds me though that and that very much plays in the theme because notice when Jeffrey becomes the pod person, when we first see him, he's dressed very casually, and then when he becomes the
Yeah,
pod person, I mean, he's wearing a suit from there on out,
yeah,
which is a very clear indication of like a conformity to
right.
the norm, where he buttons up, and then that's his pod version. And by the way, we didn't even talk about the fact that the phrase pod person, which is just a common vernacular that a lot of people probably don't even know where it comes from. But
It's
this is
this.
where it comes from. It comes from
Yeah,
this. The whole point of calling someone a pod person is directly from Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
yeah. And it's so interesting. I mean, just the way that's kind of permeated the culture and become a thing. And like, yeah, and that speaks to the film. Like, they just want to envelop you. Like, they don't really want to hurt Matthew. They just kind of want him to conform. So it's not like a real antagonist per se. It's just like join us, and they make it sound so inviting when Leonard Nimoy's character is trying to get things moving. Uh, it's a life without emotion, but it's like a
Yeah, I
good
don't know.
life,
I
I
don't know what
guess.
I would miss more: the ability to love or the ability to hate. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough call.
Being
I
able to
mean, there's
hate
such
things is
a
important. Hating things is important to me. I don't know if I want to lose that.
such a fine line between the two, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
I
yeah, I
mean,
love that about it. It's not really. I mean, they're basically a cancer. These uh, podules or module, whatever they are, that things that come down. They just absorb resources and move on. That's kind of what we're told they do. Uh, yeah, they're sort of like stoic about it. Like they just do what they do, and it's not good or bad. They just do it. So I think it's interesting. I mean, that makes for it opens it up to all kinds of interpretation, like what the film is at its heart. And we talked about the themes and like McCarthyism and like the Eisenhower era and
yeah.
all that stuff.
But
But
that's you're right. This idea of conformity. The 50s was very much an era of conformity as well. So, that Eisenhower era. So yeah, you got a little bit of that as well. And then clearly that's what it's talking about in the 70s as well. And that's what everybody kind of rebels against, this idea that you will just become absorbed in a lifeless monoculture or with no personality. I think we call that the internet now, but that's neither here nor there.
pretty much, yeah.
So yeah.
This has one of my favorite things in a film, which is that everything is kind of falling apart around the protagonist, but they're not aware of it necessarily. But you as a viewer are, through things happening in the background, or like it's on the radio or it's on a newspaper that you see. I think about Shaun of the Dead, when he walks to the store and like there are zombies around him and he doesn't know it. And this has a lot of that. And I really, really love that. And it's kind of given through the radio here, like it is in Night of the Living Dead. Yeah, that's just such a fun trope that like Midsommar has it, where they go to this place and everything is kind of wacky and they don't recognize it. But it's kind of, I guess it's like a point of like coming to life or like developing awareness. But the table is set by all of this happening in frame. The viewer knows it and the protagonist doesn't. It's really, really cool. And I love seeing that. And
Yeah.
maybe this inspired that for films that came after it. I don't know if the original is like that as much. Is it?
Where he isn't aware of what's happening. No, it's a little bit different in that regard because he's a doctor. And
Right.
so people keep calling him, like, so he's going to people who are saying something's
Okay.
wrong. So it's a bit of a different deal in that one, which is also why it
Right.
moves faster because he's kind of already involved in it and seeing it. He doesn't know what he's seeing at first, but he knows it's something. And the pod person part where they sees like a pod with no face yet and no fingerprints or anything, that happens fairly early on as well. So it gets
Okay.
moving pretty quickly.
Yeah. And this is a little more pessimistic than that, right? Because the military gets
Well,
involved in
again, as
that
I
and they're
said,
not
that was
overrun.
this original, the studio made them change it. You know, the original ending
Right.
was pessimistic, and that's what this
Okay.
movie kind of brings back. And I love that, and that's such a 70s thing as well, that
Yeah.
because it was the 70s, you could get away with it,
Yeah.
but in the 50s, you couldn't. So they had to frame it with the idea that things would be okay, that the military could step in and they probably would solve the problem. And you don't have to do that in the 70s anymore. So, and plus, again, at this period of 70s, the belief in institutions and especially the military after the Vietnam War was pretty low. So I don't think any film goer would have wanted to see that anyway. So it makes it pretty easy to go
Right.
that way. What I
I was
love,
thinking,
well, just real quick from the original to the new one. If you go back and watch the original, it's so obvious that the pods are like paper mache. If they pick
yeah.
them up and they're so light, it just makes me laugh. Or even the newer ones, it gives you a feel that there's some heft to them. But I love how the original, like how super, they didn't even try to pretend that they're heavy. Like you should have pretended when you lifted them they were substantial, but they didn't even
Yeah.
bother with it.
I really need to go back and watch that just for that alone because
Yeah,
that sounds really fun to watch.
there's some pretty fun parts.
Since this is a remake, it had me thinking about other science fiction remakes. I mean, it sounds like the original is very good, and I'm looking forward to watching it. But I was thinking about The Thing, which came out 3 years later. I think 3 years later, and how that's a remake as well of almost a similar story, and also The Fly. That's another one that came out a few years after, also starring Jeff Goldblum. And these are three films that are remade from things that were made in the 40s and 50s. They all kind of have body horror around them in some way, and I think
Yeah,
they're all kind of considered better than the original as far as I can tell. So I just think that's interesting to point out that you don't often get that, but in this realm of science fiction and this sort of like body horror thing, it seems like at least around that time that was a trend, and that's fairly interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. Although, I mean, it does make a lot of sense because I mean, we know that those movies back in the 50s, I mean, they were being put out. I mean, they were all B movies. They're being made pretty cheaply. I mean, again, well done, especially, the look of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The noir element is so great. But again, these are B movies. They're fairly cheap. They're short. They make their point. They get in, they get out. I think that they're ripe for being remade because you can explore themes a little bit deeper in a remake. And also, obviously, the technology is a little bit better, so you can make things a little bit better to look at. Although, speaking of, the one other issue I have with this movie, I do really think that the dog face man was a little much. I understand, like, you do these things because you can. You use the technology that you have at the time, and it was a good mask. And so I'm sure it was a mask. That was an actual
Yeah,
mask on a dog.
poor dog.
And I'm sure someone was like, "That's pretty cool. We should use it." So I understand like why you do it, but as far as like seeing it, I think it was a bit unnecessary.
Yeah, especially the first shot. That's kind of a wider shot where they're just clearly eye holes in the mask. You know, it's just a dog wearing a mask.
Yeah, I
But
didn't
then
really
you
need
get
that. And
closer to
I
it.
get that there was a large report being made about how it's some of the pod stuff is a little going awry a little bit, and about the fact that it's not perfect. I guess that's the point that it was trying to make. But yeah, I didn't need it. That dog
The
face thing was kind of haunting my dreams that night that I first saw it.
Yeah, it really was.
Didn't need it.
Perhaps the second most iconic shot of the film, behind the very end with Donald Sutherland pointing.
Right.
The banjo guy, I think his name was Dave, if I recall correctly. All the banjo music was written by Jerry Garcia.
I had heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And, a local guy. Surprised he didn't just play the part.
Yeah, and didn't get, and I don't know if he took anything for it. Another person that was in this movie that did it as a favor was Robert Duvall. You see the beginning, which, okay, I have to mention this one because Robert Duvall, and you recognize that it's Robert Duvall
Yeah.
as a priest on a swing, and it's the creepiest damn thing I've ever seen. Like that's the creepiest priest on a swing ever. But what I discovered is that I believe that you're supposed to think that is the first pod person. Like that's the point of it. Like that's kind of what you're supposed to get from it. And it's the same thing with that guy in the office that bumps into what's her name again? Elizabeth?
Elizabeth?
Yeah, that bumps into Elizabeth in the office, which is, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and that guy walks past her,
Yeah.
and then they share a
Yeah.
look. Like, you're supposed to be picking up on that, which you may not pick up on the first time. You may just think that that's the creepiest priest ever, like on a swing in a park around a bunch of kids,
It's
which
so random.
obviously has its own feelings now in our era of the
Yeah.
2020s. But yeah, I think you're just supposed to get that he's the first pod person that you see.
Well, I think it kind of sets the tone and makes a point that maybe religion doesn't have any way like any part in this and it's not going to help you or but it also is the moment where they cut to his point of view so the camera is swinging back and
Right.
forth which that right out of the gate there's like amazing cinematography in this and I saw that and I was like okay I'm all in and even the beginning with the little things like floating up and they show kind of the origin and it moving I just kept thinking how much fun that must have been to make, like being on a set or something and creating that effect. It looks so cool because they had to do it. And it's just really, really fun. So I love watching 70s movies because when they have cool effects, you know that they had to make those effects.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
And now we don't get that as much. So it's too bad. But
And actually, I was listening to an interview with the director, and he talked about that. He talked about how making low budget movies can be fun in that way because you have to work a lot harder and you really have to find ways to do the stuff that you want as
yeah,
opposed to working with a bigger budget where things just come easier. And why he kind of enjoys working on a smaller budget.
right. Yeah, it's cool. And this budget was actually very small. We'll get into the numbers in a minute, but yeah, I go ahead.
No,
Do
I
you
was
want
going
to
to
talk
talk. I
about
was
the mud
just.
bath?
I wasn't. I was going to talk about Philip Kaufman himself. So you just talk
Okay,
about the
yeah,
mud
yeah.
bath. Go ahead.
I just have you ever been in a mud bath? That is the most 1970s San Francisco thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's
But it does
very.
a great job like it creating tension for that scene. It's very, very cool. But it's also like such a weird experience to me.
Oh yeah, another scene I could have done without was about that guy getting out of the mud bath and getting a massage. I could have done without that scene too. You could have.
It reminded me of I just saw the trailer for Wuthering Heights, the new Emerald Fennell film, and there's have you seen that? The
No,
trailer? Well,
not yet.
it's very like tactile, so like all of her films are, and there's a moment where Margot Robbie is like kneading dough to like into the camera and the folds of the dough are just so in your face and like that's what I thought of when I saw this guy being massaged because it's just like right there and kind of unsettling and gross but hey I mean big guys need love too.
That's perfectly fine. I didn't see anybody getting a massage in that scene.
Yeah, so
Good,
Philip
good.
Kaufman.
Save 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Looking at his work, I mean, I think he's such an interesting filmmaker. I mean, he's done. I don't think he's ever made the same movie twice, and he doesn't have a huge filmography. But I mean, going from the Invasion of the Body Snatchers to the Wanderers, which was a fun movie that I remember watching when I was a kid, HBO movie, and then he makes the right stuff after that, which is we'll talk about right stuff another time. I don't know how much I love the right stuff, but I appreciate it. We'll put it that way. Um, and then goes on to make the Unbearable Lightness of Being, which is another. It's an interesting movie. It's definitely a filmmaker's kind of movie. 2 hours and 50 minutes of you know Soviet invasion love story. I don't know. It's a lot going on there.
Kundera's
But
heady.
yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So I mean, he doesn't shy away from difficult things. He makes fascinating movies. I mean, he even made Henry and June, which I'm sure you remember how controversial that was at the time. That it was an NC-17 movie, like one of the first movies to ever be NC-17.
As somebody who was obsessed with Uma Thurman as a young man, I was very aware of Henry and June.
Yeah. So yeah, he's just kind of a I hate to use the word auteur because I don't love that word, but yeah, he's very much a filmmaker, who has in mind the things that he wants to do, and chooses his projects carefully, I would say. Although he did make Rising Sun with Sean Connery,
Yeah,
which is kind of one of my favorites. I can't lie.
it's a fun one. But you're
The
leaving
crazy thing about
out
Rising Sun, by the way, which I was reading about, it was based on a book by Michael Crichton. Crichton apparently disavowed the project because he said that the movie wasn't anti-Japanese enough for him. That I guess the book was super anti-Japan, and he was angry
Wow.
that Kaufman's movie wasn't as anti-Japan, and so he like disavowed the project. I didn't know anything about that. What a crazy story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Should have called it Setting Sun if he wanted it to be more anti-Japan.
Yeah, I don't know.
But forgetting that Philip Kaufman has a story by credit on Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right. Yeah,
That's insane.
apparently he was close with Lucas because he talks about doing the first screening of this movie at Lucas's compound. So yeah, so they have a connection. I'm not sure. I guess maybe just because they're both filmmakers from California that in that period of time in the 70s. He was also close with Coppola, where he edited this movie. He edited this movie, the original Zoetrope in San Francisco.
I think those guys, in the 70s, they're all like that group. And he basically created the character of Indiana Jones according to everything that would come out after Raiders of the Lost Ark. He gets a character's by credit. So that's pretty wild. I never knew that. So that's interesting. And yeah, he's all over the place as a director. It's quite a fascinating career. So I'm going to go try to watch a few more of his things because I really want to see if that vision that he has in Invasion of the Body Snatchers carries over to this other stuff. I'm guessing it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, The Wanderers is a cool movie if I remember right. I mean, The Right Stuff I haven't seen in a very long time, but I always think of The Right Stuff and Chariots of Fire together for some reason as movies that I appreciate more than I like.
Yeah.
So, but maybe I'm older now and The Right Stuff is worth a revisit. But
Yeah, I'm not a space movie guy.
I've told you before, space movies are not my favorite thing.
Yeah. Do they even go into space in that? Probably. I don't know. It seems like it's more of a ground story.
It is. It's about getting there,
Yeah.
than it is about space itself.
Space adjacent is still not for me. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention about this?
No, I don't want to step on it. I think that we said enough about it. I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely the best version of Body Snatchers, I believe. And
they've gone on to remake. Yeah, they've remade it in a lot of different ways. The Faculty was basically
it's influenced TV shows. There was a TV show called Invasion, which I also watched.
Yeah,
all these things are connected to the Body Snatchers. It's just a classic story. But this version is maybe the best version.
I haven't seen most of the others, but I can't imagine they compete with this on a visual and like audio level. So I don't even think I'll watch them because this feels almost perfect to me. I love it when you bring something to the show that I haven't seen that I'm like blown away by because it's happened a few times. And I'm really glad we're doing this. This will absolutely be one of the 4Ks or Blu-rays I buy at the next Criterion.
I'm thrilled. I'm sure that Wildcats was another one, but
yeah. Better than I remember, but I wouldn't put it at Body Snatchers level. This had a very tiny budget of $3.5 million.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is. And it made 25 million. So it did pretty well. Although that's all domestic. The international box office, according to Box Office Mojo, is $182.
82 is just a specific number. I kind of love the idea of like 30 people in like one country went to go see it. Like, I don't even know. It's very funny.
Like one
person in like multiple countries went to go see it. Just one guy in each place.
He's like, I have to see this on every continent.
Yeah.
It's pretty well received too. It has a 93% critics rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I guess Roger Ebert is that 7% that dropped it from 100. And an 82% audience rating. So that's pretty darn good. 3.9 on Letterboxd, which is very good. So it feels like a movie for the film bros, like the guys on Letterboxd and gals really appreciate this, as they should. So yeah, I am such a fan of this movie now that I've watched it, and we'll definitely be buying it on physical media. So yeah, where did you watch it?
I actually had the DVD and that I got from the library, and I watched it. It's actually streaming on HBO Max, which is great.
Yeah, that's where I saw it. Yep. So it's available there. Seek this out. Seriously, like it's so good. It's just such a like a masterclass in filmmaking, I think, from a production standpoint. So definitely worth watching. That's it.
And if you fast forward 10 minutes of it, we won't tell anybody.
That's it for Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Let's move on to what we watched this week.
So I didn't watch a ton this week because I was finishing watching the movie, the TV show Upload on that Greg Daniels created that was on Amazon.
Well, you know what's why I
Which is
can't
kind
talk
of which
about
is
it?
kind of a hit or miss show, but I love the premise of it. And again, I think we're going to be closer to the Upload future than we are to the Jetson future. But it's like a fascinating story where they end up uploading all these people to this consciousness place where they all live. But the idea eventually is to use those people to actually work, and then like living people won't have jobs anymore because the AI people that they up like the people they upload into this a torrent will basically work for free. It's kind of crazy. It's like an interesting idea. But anyway,
Ooh, let's not give the billionaires any ideas.
yeah. But what I did watch was The Naked Gun, the
Oh,
remake of The
okay.
Naked Gun, and I actually liked it. I think that you can clearly see that the people that made it loved the original, and you can see it in every aspect of it. And I appreciate it because I did too. But at the same time that I was watching it, I really do wonder if this kind of comedy still works as well as it used to.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
And I'm still not totally sure, but I enjoyed it. I actually showed some scenes of it to my 10-year-old because I wanted to see if he would laugh. And he did. There are a couple of scenes that he laughed at, a couple of scenes that just you didn't catch it all because it does. It's like, visual comedy, but also like, double like the way they use words like they did in the originals, like take a chair, like that kind of stuff. And she
Yeah,
grabs a chair,
yeah,
right? Like, like the literalness of everything, which I kind of love. And
right.
he did enjoy some of it. There's a running gag where they're drinking coffee all the time.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw it, which that amuses me. That amused me. I thought it was pretty good. So
yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was pretty fun.
I think we need more of it. And, I heard so many discussions around can a comedy open to a good box office is and like what's the hope for comedy at the theater in the future? And I think I don't know what it made, but everything I hear about it is that people liked it. And I liked it a lot too. So yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that this will like pave the way for things beyond it that are fun comedies to see in a theater. Will they have to be IP or, based on something that already exists? Probably.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
that's what is like helpful to this is that there's a template for it already. Right. So it was maybe a little easier because they had a starting point and those kind of gags laid out for them. No, no, like not to take any credit away from Akiva Schaffer and the writers, but it helps to have that from the past to build on, I think.
And my favorite gag of all time isn't even from the movie. It's from the original Police Squad TV show where they arrest the guy and they tells him run him in, and they
Yeah.
set up these blocks with a guy with the starter gun, and then they just run
Yeah.
down the street. That will never not make me laugh. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with more of this.
I love that Paul Walter Hauser was in it.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. He's believable as the son of George Kennedy. I really like that. Did you watch anything else you want to mention?
No, that was about it.
Okay. Yeah, pretty slow week for me too watching things, but I actually watched a film that you mentioned in the news a few weeks back or maybe a few months back called Vicious, which is this new film from Dakota Fanning or
Yeah,
starring Dakota Fanning that has no box office release or no theatrical release. I think I watched it on Paramount Plus,
that's where it is.
which
Yeah.
is where it ended up landing and it's okay. It's directed by Brian Bertino, who directed The Strangers and a few of those sequels. It has Catherine Hunter in it, who, if you saw, there was an A24 film last year called The Front Room, or maybe this year with
Oh yeah, yeah.
Brandy. And she was so creepy in that. And she's so creepy in this too. And it's about a woman who just kind of like goes down a rabbit hole one night after she's given a box and told she's going to die if she doesn't put certain things in it. So it's a little bit like The Ring, or something like that. But it was okay. It was passable. I think, as horror movies go on streaming, they're cheap to make. They can be interesting for not a lot of money, and you can maybe get a star or two in them. And I always like Dakota Fanning, so it's if you have Paramount Plus and 2 hours to kill in October, check it out. It's okay.
So I actually have a question for you, which just hit me. I was going to start watching the Final Destination movies,
Okay.
and then I realized there are like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And then I paused and thought, you know what? Let me ask Steven. Is it worth watching all 5 Final Destination movies?
They get a bit redundant to me. It's like they just try to find new ways to make like a Rube Goldberg murderer, basically. And I haven't watched them in a long time, except for the new one. I would actually say just watch the new one. I mean, it did really well at the box office.
Maybe I'll
It
watch the
was
first
surprisingly
one
good.
and then the new one. I
That's
feel
the way to
like
go.
I should establish the story because I've never seen the original.
Yeah, it's like Rube Goldberg machines. That's all it is, all the time. And that's fun the first time.
That is fun.
But
A Rube Goldberg of murder sounds pretty fun. So, all right, I'll watch the first and last one. Then, if I'm intrigued, maybe I'll watch the others. Okay,
yeah,
good to know.
yeah. The last one was surprisingly good. I've really enjoyed it. So I recommend that one.
Yeah, strangely enough, my dad watched it. It was on streaming or on HBO or something, and he watched it and he actually really enjoyed it. So that's what got me thinking, like maybe I should go back and watch these.
Yeah. If you liked, I know you enjoyed Happy Death Day because that was not so intense and just kind of fun. And there are a lot like that because those are almost, in a way, Rube Goldberg things too. More Groundhog Day.
Just
I
more
guess, but
violent, I would think, though.
yeah, I mean, some of the kills are a little gory, but you know, it's CGI. Don't worry about it.
I mean, I'm not worried for me. I'm going to watch it. It's fine. I'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the new one might be good for like a 16-year-old, maybe not anybody younger than that, but you know.
Got it.
But your older son,
another 2 a.m. movie for me. Got it. Okay.
yeah, your older son's not a horror fan, right? No. Okay. But the younger son is, if I recall.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the problem where he
Yeah.
wants to see all this stuff. I'm still trying to keep him from watching Scream. He keeps asking me to watch Scream. And I'm like, I think you're just 2 years away from Scream. Like, it's
Yeah.
a little too early for Scream.
I mean, you know, I watched An American Werewolf in London when I was 7. So
I know. Look at you.
I turned out
There you go.
okay.
That's why I'm trying to wait.
yeah, I'm a cautionary tale, I guess. All right. Well, that's it for another week. Next week, I can't believe how quickly this month has gone by.
It's like the
After
total
football
opposite
month.
of football month.
We're wrapping up Not So Scary Horror next week with, I know it's a favorite of yours, and I remember really enjoying it. We're going to talk about 1987's The Monster Squad, directed by Fred Decker, which is going to be a lot of fun. Be sure to come back and join us for that, and we'll see you then. So long. As always, thanks for listening to the Weekly Movie Throwdown. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And for even more from us, visit moviethrowdownpod.com or connect with us on social media. We're Movie Throwdown on Letterboxd and at Movie Throwdown Pod everywhere else.